I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation. Today, the conversation with Al McFarlane, of course. Today is Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022, just days away from a monumental election, the midterms. A lot at stake in Minnesota and around the country. And I want to talk about that with my first guest today. She's a friend, I call her a lightning rod, a person that activates, motivates, gets things done, makes it happen. Anika Robbins is here. And before I bring Anika in, let me say hi to my colleague and writing partner, Brenda Lyle-Gray. Brenda, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you? How are you, Anika?
And let's bring Anika in. How you doing? And
how are you?
Hey.
Good seeing you.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
This Saturday at an event that Anika and I were at, I think it was Saturday, event that I attended actually last night, Tuesday night. Myron Orfield was there. He's a former state legislature professor at the University of Minnesota, and he was driving home the point of the elections as well. So I'm going to bring Myron in as well and converse with Myron and Anika about the importance of the elections that we're involved in right now. Myron, good afternoon. Welcome. How you doing?
How are you?
Great. Well, let me start with asking Anika to lay out the work she's done. I'm going to hold up a product that she has created. This is your product,
yes,
Anika. And
yes.
She's been out in the field day and night, reaching all corners of the state, challenging and encouraging our people to vote to create Minnesota Voice. This book, Democracy or Chaos, says that Black votes matter. Anika, let me start with you. Just talk about this book and what the message is. What's the work? What's the mission that's driving you to keep bringing this point again and again and again?
Thank you so much. And thanks for lifting up our work. Black Votes Matter Minnesota was established in 2015 in the wake of Jamar Clark being murdered by Minneapolis police. And we realized then, when there were no charges brought forward for the officers involved, that our community had to change and re-strategize how we engage policymakers, how we engage the police department, and how we go about bringing forth the change that we so desperately need in our communities. And so we're voter engagement, we're nonpartisan, and we really decided to focus on the voters, and in particular, Black voters, the Black community who has been so disenfranchised in this country, but really to issue a personal invitation so people understand the landscape of politics, where and how to plug in. And then critically important is who's responsible for the decision making. So as you know, our two Black legislators, right, at the time, Senator Hayden, my cousin, and then also Senator Bobby Joe Champion, they always get these calls from our community. But really, this issue of police accountability rests with City Council. And so these are just some of the things, and the mayor. And so these are some of the things that we lift up for community and understand. And then there's the county seats. A lot of people did not understand that the county attorneys and sheriffs and commissioners are all elected. And so we had folks for, words like dynasty were being thrown around in the community because they have held these seats for upwards of 20 plus years. And so, but these seats are single-handedly responsible for the plight of our community. When we look at mass incarceration rates in the Twin Cities, 70% of the population in Hennepin County Jail and juvenile detention centers are Black men and young Black people, right? Men and women. And so we start bringing these issues forward to the community and helping them understand why voting matters, rather than just saying, oh, vote for this person. We really saw the need to connect people with how voting equates to their issues and getting those things addressed. And so our guide we publish every year. We've published to date over 50,000 copies. This year we're so excited because we were able to get it distributed in Duluth and St. Cloud and highlight some of those races there. We know that there are growing communities of color across the state. A lot of times there's so much focus on the Twin Cities, but there are growing populations of people of color and African immigrants in Worthington, in Mankato, St. Cloud, Duluth, and several other areas too. So it's really critically important for Black people to understand if you want that change, then you have to leverage your power through the vote to bring that change about.
Well, we're going to talk about some of those specific races. Last night, Professor Myron Orfield was at a meeting up at is it Covenant Church? Ebenezer, excuse me, thank you. Ebenezer Church, which is largely West African, Liberian population, a great church led by Pastor Francis Tabla. But the meeting started off and in part was a public policy discussion led by the Stair Step Foundation on Highway 252 and on 94. And when that business concluded, it sort of morphed into a community awareness around the importance of the vote. And one of the people talking about the importance of the vote was Myron Orfield. And I reached out to Myron last night saying, look, I know that you're passionate, that you're working, and you've got some major things you want to say, and invited Myron to come here today to talk about his work, his ideas. And Myron, we're going to be using in Insight coming up, probably online today, but also during the week, an article you sent me that talks about, I'm trying to pull it up here now, but you probably have it in front of you there, that talks about the critical issues in this election. First of all, why is it so important? And what are the things that you're saying are really indicative of a new, what's the right word? Not anger, but just a shift to the right that is frightening, that we have to pay attention to. Myron, you can take it from there.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I think one of the big issues, just the other day, the Supreme Court was considering affirmative action, and it almost is certain that affirmative action is going to disappear, that it's going to be declared illegal by the U.S. Supreme Court. They've overturned the right to privacy and abortion, and very soon they're going to be going after issues like disparate impact in the federal civil rights laws. It's pretty clear where they're going there, and even the ability to do voluntary school integration may be declared illegal by the federal courts. And so I think it's very important that the state courts in states like Minnesota start to build up those rights again that are going to disappear from the federal constitution. And you need, people like Keith Ellison on a nonpartisan basis is a very strong supporter of civil rights. Yeah. And I think that, having him as Attorney General and having a pretty good Supreme Court makes Minnesota a place where these rights can be established. I think his opponent, I don't think is the supporter of these civil rights. I think he very much agrees with the Supreme Court now about affirmative action and civil rights, and that will be a big harm. And Keith is a very pivotal person, and he's one of the most important civil rights symbols in the country right now. One of the really the only statewide prosecutor ever to put a police officer in jail. And there's a film out that shows how the Attorney General in Kentucky didn't have that courage that Keith did, and he's being penalized really unfairly, for that effort. And he's being attacked by a group of people that supported the insurrection in Washington. They're spending more money attacking him than the whole Republican campaign is spending. So it's a vicious series of attacks, and Keith's a very important person at the moment.
Let me read part of the opinion piece that you submitted that we're going to be presenting in Insight, probably online as early as today or tomorrow, but as a major feature in Monday's Our Election edition. And the headline on it is that the January 6th organizers back Attorney General Ellison's opponent with a racist ad campaign. And your group writes that the campaign against Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison has been funded by an outside dark money group, which has blanketed the airwaves with a wave of vicious, false, and racially incendiary advertising. This far-right organization helped organize and fund the January 6th rally that became an assault on the U.S. Capitol. It relies on the same group of wealthy donors and far-right advocacy groups that led the decades-long and now successful strategy to overturn Roe v. Wade and eliminate abortion rights nationwide. This group sees electing Republican candidates or the Republican candidate Jim Schultz as a key pillar of its radical agenda, and he is happily accepting their aid. I'll read one more paragraph and we'll talk about it. The incendiary and false ads are designed to frighten voters with blurry images of crimes in progress and calling Ellison the criminal's choice and falsely implying that he has worked to shield violent offenders from the law. The ads unsubtly evoked the notoriously racist 1988 Willie Horton ad campaign, which was explicitly designed as an attempt to frighten white voters with stories of a black felon. And it goes on. It's a well-written and extensive, expansive piece that encourages people to think and at the end of the day to reject the ultra-right advocacy, the group called RAGA. So tell me about the parts, the remaining ideas presented in this op-ed piece that you've written.
Well, it's really, I mean, it's a vast amount of money, and it's coming from places like Wells Fargo, a local bank that has a very discriminatory record, one of the worst discriminatory records in the country with regard to mortgage discrimination against Black people. And it's really an effort to stymie a progressive person, a person that's trying to do his job. I've never seen in my life ads that are this racist and so conservative. And I've seen a lot of ads. I'm 60 years old. I was in politics for a long time. I've never seen anything close to this bad. Willie Horton ads are mild compared to the ads that they're just blanketing the airwaves against Keith, and really unfairly. I mean, he is he's done a lot of good. He did prosecute a man that killed George Floyd, but he's a strong attorney general that believes in law and order. For sure. There's no indication that he's the criminal friend in any way, or that he is against the police, providing public order. He did have the bravery to prosecute one of the worst police killings in American history, a bravery that the Attorney General of Kentucky, a Democrat, and an African-American man didn't have that bravery. And I think if Keith is defeated on this issue, there'll never be a prosecution of a police officer by a statewide elected official again. And
here's another article that's going to be posted today at insightnews.com, and also a lead story for Monday's election issue. It goes, the Minnesota DFL party is charged that an $847,000 Minnesota for Freedom ad buy was coordinated to support the candidacy of Jim Schultz, Republican challenging Attorney General Keith Ellison, and should have been counted as a contribution to Schultz because it's greatly in excess of the campaign finance limit of $2,500. I'm going to ask you to explain that in a couple of seconds. If an investigation finds that Jim Schultz for Minnesota Attorney General Committee and the Minnesota for Freedom political fund work together, the DFL is saying, they could be liable for millions of dollars in fines, which would be the largest campaign finance fine in state history. And the last paragraph I'll read of this part says that the Minnesota DFL party on October 18th filed a complaint with Minnesota's Campaign Finance and Public Disclosure Board, charging that Schultz's campaign illegally coordinated ads with Minnesota for Freedom. The complaint reveals that a certain Stephen Sykes placed ad buys for the Schultz campaign and for Minnesota for Freedom. And that is a point of illegality. So let me have you explain that, if you would. What's the rub here?
Well, I think that the campaign finance laws are not as robust as they ought to be, but when you have clear coordination with an objective like this that's so clearly meshed with the campaign of an individual, you can't say that it's an independent expenditure. I'm not an expert in campaign finance law, but I think that this is as strong of a case as I've ever seen for this. And it's sad that, in a nonpartisan way, Republicans in Minnesota used to be very good on civil rights. Arnie Carlson was good on civil rights. It was a long history, and some of the Republican people in the state were some of the great champions. But today, it's really vicious. There's just a vicious attack against Keith without any basis.
So I'm going to ask both of you, Anika and Myron, to talk about the question of color and race and ethnicity in this. Anika, the question to you is, what do we do? How do we motivate our people to know what's at stake, and that we really make sure that all of us that can vote do vote, and that we also reach out and grab, the person next door, the person upstairs, downstairs, but we have to have all hands on deck, every ballot lever pulled, every ballot turned in and counted. How do we do that? And that our doing must be of a nature that challenges all of our allies, to show up. Even if they don't think the issues are as consequential as we think they are, they need to show up just because they are friends, family, allies, neighbors. And then Myron, I want you to talk about what the issues are from the point of view, if you can, of the white community. Why is the threat from the Trump wing of the conservatives so great and growing? I think this is really something that's frightening, and what it stands for, and you've outlined it, the rollback of rights for education, for affirmative action, women's rights, and more down the road if they prevail. And from my point of view, their agenda is not democracy, but simply power and rule. And the power and rule they seek is power to turn the clock back. And the clock they want to turn back is one that puts my people, me, in a position of subservience and marginalization. And for that, I absolutely say no. Anika, you first, and then Myron.
Well, I echo your sentiments, Al. Absolutely not. We are not, will not be going backwards. Our call is clear, and we have become even more concise in our approach, because we understand that while voter turnout in our community is low, it's especially low amongst Black men, in particular young Black men. So we've really been concerting our efforts to try and reach and engage this population, the 18 to 25-year-olds, and even some veteran voters who've grown complacent. A lot of times over here when we're, on the streets engaging folks, is they don't believe that the system is for them. And so why bother? They don't feel like their vote matters. They see how, sometimes our country postures, but doesn't really hold any accountability. And so these are the things that we're pushing back against when we're engaging our community. But listen, we are I'm so thankful for our volunteers and our canvassers and folks like the Urban League Young Professionals who work with us, our team in St. Cloud, the NAACP in Duluth and whatnot. It's clear the sense of urgency, and I just hope that it doesn't get to the point, there's that saying, well, first they came for the Jews, then they came for the socialists, then they came for the communists. We're at that point. We're at that point where we have to absolutely show up for ourselves. Otherwise, we will see many of these protections that folks like Congressman John Lewis fought for and had to reinstate a voting rights law 50 years after the original voting rights law, and to see that on the chopping block. Women's reproductive rights. And people don't understand that it's more than those things. So don't think, oh, well, that's not the right that matters to me. We're seeing a lot of that as well. You have to it has to matter to you about all of the civil rights, the voting rights. Minnesota is a refugee state right now. And by that, what do I mean? There's such a term now called abortion tourism.
Mm-hmm.
People are traveling to Minnesota and Illinois to get that healthcare service. And now we see affirmative rights. So now it's up to folks like the Secretary of State, it's up to the Attorney General. Like voting rights is very much on this ballot. Civil rights are on this ballot. Women's reproductive rights, affordable health care, housing, economic stability and empowerment for our communities. So we cannot leave this very powerful tool of voting on the table. I encourage you to talk to your sons, your daughters, your nieces, your nephews, your coworkers. Don't assume that adults are voting. A lot of people kind of treat it as, oh, I'll get to it. This is our hard-earned right, bought and paid for in blood. We cannot squander this opportunity. And we also are letting people know that, your employer can't stop you from going to vote. It is their constitutional right to go vote, to take time off from work to go vote. Do it. The Urban League has opened their early vote center. They're right in our community. There are several other early voting sites. You can go to our website at blackvotesmattermn.com. You can go to MN Votes and find your polling location. We're also encouraging people to research the candidates. Look who's on your ballot. There's school board, county attorney, sheriff, several judges, but the governor, our governor currently has vowed to protect abortion rights, and will likely protect affirmative action. But what does that mean? People need to be thinking about how vastly different our country can potentially look come November 9th. Vastly different. The things that you take for granted, okay, you get your paycheck, you have a home, you can live where you want, you don't have to sit on the back of the bus. But a lot of those things can change and continue to change if people don't show up, if Black people, if young Black men and women, if veteran voters, if our allies, our white women need to come out in record numbers to vote. This is not about, don't do it, y'all. I'll leave it there.
So Myron, jump in here. And I always like to ask my white friends to talk about what happens at white dinner tables when people discuss the issues that you always hear Anika and Al and Brenda talk about. We talk about the political environment from the lens of our experience, having come out of and still in many, many ways living with the vestiges of legal theft of our lives and our labor called the American enslavement system. But what do white people talk among themselves? And how do you see the discussion in the white community unfolding about what the options are for the future?
Well, I think that the white community doesn't think about this very much. And as we've become much more racially segregated, they don't know Black people or have much to do with them or meet them in their daily lives. We have the most rapidly segregating school system in the United States. We went from no segregated schools in the 1990s. We have now more than 170 elementary schools that are more than 90% non-white and poor. We compare this to Portland, which has our same racial mix. They've got 2. In Seattle, which has our same racial mix, they have 20 with 1 million more students. So we have hyper segregated our educational system. We're hyper segregating our housing money. We're building almost all the affordable housing in the poorest neighborhoods, and not shielding the whiter suburbs completely from any obligation to have affordable housing. And it's happening across party lines. This kind of extreme discrimination is also connected with the worst mortgage lending discrimination against Blacks in any state in the country. If you're a Black family that earns $172,000 a year in Minnesota, you're less likely to qualify for a prime loan than a white family that earns 40. There's no place that's even close to that bad. We have real estate agents who steer. They steer Black people mercilessly. We had 2 Black deans of the law school who had an almost impossible time buying a house in Edina. And these were men that had gone to the best law schools in the country and had done everything exceptionally in the top 1%, and they both had a hard time with this because of the severe and unrelenting discrimination that real estate agents have. So, I mean, it's a tough business. I mean, social network.
So how do you divide, how do you distinguish and account for effective progressivism in the white community, distinguishing itself and emerging out of the clutches of what I call or almost a barbarian conservatism? How do you do that? Does that discussion happen?
I think it needs to come from social activism. I mean, I think a lot of parts of the Democratic Party have decided the civil rights laws are just too hard to fight for anymore. But we had great civil rights leaders here. We had Roy Wilkins was the champion of the NAACP. He came from here. Clarence Mitchell, who had the leadership conference on civil rights during the greatest period of civil rights, was educated at the University of Minnesota. Whitney Young, who headed the National Urban League, was from the university here at Minnesota. And they were powerful leaders who forced good politicians like Hubert Humphrey and Walter Mondale to do good things. And now we have no real powerful force that's moving to enforce civil rights laws. The civil rights organizations have been defunded by the big foundations. So there's no appetite for that. And I just think a public movement has to happen. We have to really fight for this, because a segregated society is a weak society. It's a society that's divided, that can't function. It's a society that writes off a third of all of its citizens and doesn't give them a decent education or a chance for a better living. America thrives when it's fair, when everybody gets the same chance, when everybody, in the civil rights period in America, which really lasted from 1964 till 1980, where things improved, the whole country was better. Everything was better. The economy was better. Relations were better. Progress was being made every year on all sorts of fronts. And the country was stronger than it has been. And now the country's divided into racial camps. Race is at the center of our national campaigns, whether it be overtly or not. We're not taking on any big issues because we're so worried about who is going to help the Black people a little bit more than anybody else. And a lot of our politicians, I mean, our civil rights laws were abandoned by Skip Humphrey and Democrats because it was too hard. They thought it was too big of a deal. Mm-hmm. So I think the churches, the labor movement, people have to raise hell about this.
So what do you see as the twin trains here? What outcomes do you see if a progressive humanistic ideology emerges and prevails? Or what outcomes do you see if the Trumpist conservatives, ultra right-wing faction of that party prevail? Where do you see our society?
I think we had a good progressive President Obama. I had the privilege to work for President Obama on civil rights for 7 years on housing issues, and he was interested in this. If President Obama's and the civil rights vision prevailed, you'd have twice as many kids from poor neighborhoods going to college in a very short period of time. You'd have kids that were in schools that were well funded and that they were racially diverse and that they were going to college. 90% of Black law students went to racially integrated high schools. And right now we're looking at the segregated high schools in North Minneapolis. There's almost nobody going to college anymore. And if they are, they're coming from the suburbs generally. Mm-hmm. You'd have a system where a Black person that earned a decent wage would have an equal chance at getting a loan. And right now, it's the worst you can imagine. I talk about this, and it shocks white people how bad it is. But every Black person I know knows how badly banks treat every Black person I know and everybody. And when you can't get the big loan, there's a whole 2/3 of the housing market is just written off to you. We have real estate agents who behave miserably badly. They show Black people housing in Osseo, school district, in Brooklyn Park, and Brooklyn Center, Maple Grove. They show white families with the same income, education, and credit history, Minnetonka and Plymouth, every time, 99% of the time. And that's not fair. People should have the same choices, and they don't. We have communities, white affluent communities won't build a stick of affordable housing. They'll only build houses on a half-acre lot, and they don't want any of those people involved. And they're taking the schools that have absolute powerful social connections to the best colleges of the country, where almost everybody gets swept along. They're not letting any people of color into those schools at all and hoarding all that privilege. All of us white people think that we've made it up on our hard work and we pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We are every day the beneficiary of social networks that totally define our existence that we don't allow Black people into our social networks. We don't allow them into our secret club. And that secret club is how do you get to college? Where do you go to law school? Where your first job come from? It doesn't come from your grades or test scores. It comes from who you know and what connections you have. And we're isolating all those connections as fast as we can in this state, a state that really has good laws and a good heritage, but nobody's using the law. Keith, I think, was trying to use the law. He was trying to do right on all this and turn it around. And I think
Myron, thank you so much for that insight, for that comment, and thank you for your work.
Yep.
We'll be talking to you again a little later on, okay?
All right.
Thank you, my friend. Anika, why don't you hang out with me for the rest of the hour, because I want you to talk about some more stuff having to do with both politics and with some of the items that Myron brought up, and that's wealth creation, building wealth. But I want to bring in my next guest, Brother Tommy McBrayer. Tommy McBrayer, good afternoon. How you doing?
And I'm doing good. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. I'm sure you want to jump in this conversation as well. You're doing a lot of work with your organization. The organization is a youth-oriented response to gun violence in our community. The name of your organization is Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops. You are a Foundation Fellow. I'm going to ask you to do two things. One, talk about your organization. You're the founder and CEO of Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops, and talk about being a Foundation Fellow as well. So I'm going to pass the talking stick, as we call it, on Fridays, the floor to you, Tommy McBrayer.
Thank you, Al and Anika and Brenda for having me this morning. So founder and CEO of Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops. I started this passion of just linking two of my passions for life. I used to always be a native of basketball, played for Roosevelt High School growing up, went to community college in Ely, Minnesota, so a real Minnesotan. And then I became a survivor of gun violence myself from my own experience of gun violence. So linking the two together, it almost felt like a glove. How can I bring the community together and bring awareness to gun violence at the same time? Because as you know, Al and Anika, talk about gun violence isn't sexy at all. It's something that's very touchy, and it really has a lot of people in their box. So we created Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops, to use basketball to bring the community together. And we use basketball and do events to increase young adults, youth and young adults' social and emotional skills. Realizing what they said back in the day of Tommy, what stopped you from gangbanging, or what stopped you from being in the street, right? It was a lot of stuff that was going on in our community that's not going on nowadays, right? You had the parks, you had the talent shows, you had, school, right? Even, the dance at school. So when you take away all of that stuff, now we're starting to see the development problems in our kids. They're not making the right decision. They are having social and emotional problems because they're not in social environments no more, right? So we use the game of basketball to create that space, create safer spaces for kids to come, to build that, to be in an environment where it's only uplifting. And in doing so, we want to decrease the gun violence that's going on in our community. So, yeah.
How did you become a Foundation Fellow? And what does that mean?
Oh man, so I became a Foundation Fellow. I applied. I forgot who actually gave me the alley hoop of Tom. You should apply for this. What would it look like? Because before I became a fellow, I was a community organizer for 3.5 years in the same neighborhood that George Floyd died in, Central Neighborhood. So being a community organizer before George Floyd, during George Floyd, then after George Floyd, I really wanted to see what it would be like to give myself give Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops 100%. What does it look like to not just be on the back burner, but put that in the front burner with this critical issue that we're facing every day of gun violence. So I applied to be a Foundation Fellow, and I got accepted, and it's been a tremendous experience of being a part of it. It's helped me grow as a leader and just being sharpened as when it comes to the issue that we're facing and why you're doing it. So I feel like it's a blessing that came from the sky, and I'm taking full advantage of it. So I'm very proud to be a Foundation Fellow.
We had one of the organizers and creators of that initiative on this program, and through here we connected to you. Our intent is to work sort of in partnership with them and to bring other Foundation Fellows on board, because we think that this relationship that they are in with you, supporting you in your work. What you're doing for the community, those are just so critical, so important. And we're glad to see resources working with assets, you being the asset to enable you to bring solutions to our community and to bring innovation to our community as well. And if I remember correctly, they provide sort of a grant or a stipend to give you, the Innovation Fellow, an opportunity to focus on the work, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And that, and you don't even realize how much stress gets off your shoulders just by being able just to focus on just by focusing on the issue of gun violence and don't shoot guns, shoot hoops. It's been a tremendous turnout. I can see the results in my product and in the events that I'm planning still to this day by just being able to focus on that and give it 100% 24 hours a day. Yeah, it's real beneficial. So I really appreciate the fellows at the Innovation. Yeah.
Great. So talk about your story. You said that you are partly in this work because you have experienced gun violence. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
To the degree that you're comfortable talking about it.
No, I'm comfortable. Yeah, it's part of the story. You know, Al, no worries. It's part of the story. Yeah, so at the age of 20 years old was my first experience of being a survivor of gun violence. Being in an urban community, this is something that we're almost used to nowadays, just hearing about gun violence, and then before you know it, you're the victim of gun violence. So at 20 years old, I was a victim of gun violence, and it was an experience. You know, it was, you know, I wasn't in the streets, so I wasn't gang banging. You know, I wasn't, you know, doing things that would get me shot, right? So here you are, you know, and just knowing you have to face what life has to throw at you now, right? But one thing through that situation, Al, is I learned.
But tell me what happened. What actually happened? What was going on?
Man, it was so it was just living a different lifestyle. You know, I'm not ashamed to say, you know, at one point in time I was selling weed. You know, just getting out of college and just trying to figure out, just like an urban kid, just trying to figure out what to do next. You know, you just got out of college, and just like a lot of us got unstructured households, right? Where mom live over here, dad live over here, brother live over there, sister live over there. So when you come back from college, it was a reality. So here I am sleeping on one of my best friend's floor, and you know, before you know it, my best friend is, you know, selling some weed, you know, and you know, before you know it, you're selling weed, right? But not even thinking that you're hurting anybody, Al. You know, you're thinking like, hey, you're just trying to pay your rent and, you know, trying to make ends meet. And then like a drug deal goes bad, basically. You know, a drug deal goes bad, and I end up getting tied up, shot, left for dead in a duplex hallway.
So somebody robbed your apartment? Is that what it was?
Somebody robbed me. A drug deal going bad. End up getting tied up, shot, left for dead in a duplex hallway at 20 years old. So when that happens, you know, you just wake up and smell a coffee. Either you're going to be the worst person in the game, or you're going to just bag out and say that this isn't my lifestyle. And I chose to bag out and say, you know, this isn't my lifestyle. And then after that, I really started living with a purpose. You know, like that was like my wake up call to say, like, you know, I look at that's a devil's game now, right? And if you're in the devil's game, you're going to be the worst of the worst, or you just get up out of it, you know, and that's just the only choices you got, you know. And so that was a wake up call, and I'm glad I got a wake up call, because a lot of people don't have wake up calls, you know.
Tell me, can you walk us through those moments, sitting there, and then what happened? Somebody breaks on the door or comes in?
Yeah, so no, I get a phone call, and basically like 11 o'clock at night, you know, it was May of 2010. So May of 2010, you know, May is basketball time, so I just got on watching basketball. About to get ready to lay down, somebody calls me. I answer the phone, and, you know, hey, tell me, you know, do you got this? I'm like, yeah, I got you, you know. And it was something small, like something you'd be like, wow, I can't believe, you know, you get shot over something so small. You know, it wasn't like you just pounds and stuff like that. You got a couple blunts type of work. So then, somebody calls me. So I go downstairs to answer the door, and, you know, this is like a normal, you know, situation is going on. They ask for change, and, you know, before you know it, you about to go get change and come down with the change, and this person just like, we're walking down the stairs, and they just up a gun and like turn around and say, you know, I'm about to take everything from you, you know. And here I am, okay, you know, put your hands up, and they take everything from you. And then you thinking like it's going to be over with, right? You know, you hear about people getting robbed all the time, but they have more planned than that, right? So here you are, you give them everything out your pocket. So now it's like, okay, y'all guys want everything. You guys want to go all the way upstairs and take everything. So in that midst of everything, I just, like I said, it's 11:30 at night. I'm on a duplex stairs. You know, duplex hallway is always small. So it's really not even a lot of space for a lot of people in this hallway.
Yeah.
So as he's pointing the gun at me and he has everything out of my pockets, 2 other guys come in the hallway. So now it's 3 people, 3 guns, and I'm in the hallway, you know, and they're all pointing at me. You know, just think about a 20-year-old. I'm just thinking like, I never got robbed a day in my life, you know, and it's this like it's almost like a movie. So they tell me to go on the floor. I get on the floor, and they're just all talk about how they want to go do about what they're going to go about, right? And before you know it, they pull out some duct tape. You know, I'm like, what? You know, so here I am already, just 3 people behind me with guns. I'm on the floor, you know, armless, right? And they take my legs and they start taping my legs together. So they tape my legs together, and then here I am thinking like, okay, if I let these guys tie my arms, then I really can't ask for help. I can't fight for myself. I can't defend myself. Now it's in a state of mind like, okay, this is real, you know, right? I thought I could handle getting robbed, but this is a whole nother level of things. So they pulled out some tape. I remember one of the guys trying to take my hand. And I was just thinking like, either you gotta, like, I had like so much time to think. So I'm like, either I'm gonna bang on this duplex door, you know, because I'm trying to think like the scenario, like who lives on the other side of this door, you know, my neighbors, things like that. And before you know it, they take my arm. And I was like, man, y'all gonna have to go to jail mess with me. And I started banging on the door for life, you know, boom, 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 banging on. Remind you, I got 3 people behind me with guns out, you know, and then so I was taking the risk of either y'all gonna get either I'm gonna let y'all tie my arms and I'm not gonna survive to tell the story, or I'm gonna bang on this door and hopefully y'all get caught after I get shot. That's my only things. That's the only thing I could think about. And I started banging on the door for life. So as I'm banging on the door for life, they was all arguing like, you shoot him, no, you shoot him, no, you shoot him, no, you shoot him, shoot, and here, pow. Now remind you, I don't know where I got shot at. They're all behind me. So I don't know if I got shot in my head. I don't know if I don't know where I got shot at. So eventually I ended up getting shot in my left back, and it came out by my heart. So as I'm looking to see like where I got shot at, like it was like almost a volcano from my shoulder, like of how it erupted into my back. So at this time, now I made them do something they didn't want to do. So now they all frantic and they're running out the door and things like that, right? And now here I am tied up, still tied up, my legs still tied up as I'm getting shot. Just blessing that I only got shot one time, you know, blessing that I could have got shot multiple times in my back, could have been paralyzed, could have been shot one time, fatally shot in the head, you know, just grateful for every possible way it could have went that it didn't go, you know, grateful to hear this, to tell my story.
Tommy, brother,
Yeah.
for you to say, I'm grateful,
Yes.
boy,
Yeah.
for you to say you lucky, boy, man. Go ahead. I just have to say that I'm listening and I'm feeling it.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so after that, the police are now, I guess they heard the shooting. The neighbor probably came out like 2 minutes later. Now, mind you, 2 minutes might not seem long, but after you get shot, 2 minutes is a long time, you know. So after 2 minutes has passed, somebody finally opens the door, like, you know, like, oh, so like trying to figure out who I am and who is that? I'm like, oh, it's Tommy, you know, go get help. I know you heard the shot. It was a loud shot, so I know you heard the shot. And I don't want my last words to be go get help. Like, I know you just, you know, that should be the first thing you do, go get help, you know. So they come out, you know, and then my roommate was upstairs in their room, so they didn't even know what was going on. So when they finally came down, there was blood everywhere, and they almost fainted down the stairs. Like, wow, like what the mess just happened? So now the police finally get there. They don't even worry about me. Like, oh, so which way did they go, Tommy? Which way did they go? I'm like, am I okay? You know, like, am I all right? Am I gonna be okay? I don't know nothing right now. You know, they're like, yeah, you know, we just need to find the guys. You know, you gotta find the guys. So before you know it, they finally untaped me and things like that. And just looking from a crime scene from the inside out, it's hard to see from the inside. I mean, it's easy to see a crime scene from the outside looking in, but being part of the crime scene, looking from inside out, it was like anxiety, you know, like you getting pulled on the stretcher and there's all these cars and neighbors and everybody trying to figure out what's going on, what happened to Tommy, right? And before you know, I black out and I get up in the hospital, my lungs end up collapsing, so I start bleeding in my mouth and things like that. On the way to the hospital as well, I end up blacking out again. I remember waking up and I haven't seen my mom for like 5 months before that, and I remember waking up and she was right by my bedside. And I was just thinking like, wow, like, you know, like, so it's that right there will change your life, you know, that right there. And that's why I'm passionate about, you know, gun violence and just passionate about just like, just thinking, people just think that you could just sell weed. And I'm telling people like, no, I mean, you can get shot selling weed. Like, it is a thing that if some people want it, if they want it bad enough, they'll shoot you for it, you know? So I know we might not think we're doing something bad because we're, you know, this and that, but it is a consequence that comes with those things, you know. So Al, so after that, I remember brother VJ from Mad Dash. He came to the hospital and he was like, you know, we just, you know, have a little one-on-one. He's always been my mentor growing up in the neighborhood. He was like, you know, Tommy, man, until you can't get a job, go get a job. You know, like you man, you don't want to sell no drugs to basically put you in a position where you can't get a job no more, Tommy, right? So I took that advice, went out of town for like a good year, just to, you know, live with my grandparents and just get my train of thought back together. Like, you know, I just really been, you know, traumatized and PTSD a lot. Couldn't really live a regular lifestyle no more. I just was just thinking everybody could be the person, right? That just did that. So when I came back, I had a whole nother agenda. I wanted to start giving back to my loved ones. I want to give back to my mentors. I want to give back to my family and things like that, Al. So this year, as of today, we're celebrating 10 years of giving, having a Tommy. I've been doing a Tommy Thanksgiving dinner ever since. I think it was like the year Trayvon Martin died. I was like, well, if something like that happens in our community, in our family, we're not together enough to feel like we could, you know, we could fight against the police or whoever, this and that, right? So I'm like, okay, let's get together. Let's do a pre-Thanksgiving weekend. I'm gonna do something at the local park, Central Green or Park or King Park. We're gonna get the family together underneath one roof before Thanksgiving. I'm gonna provide the food, you know, and I'm gonna give our awards to local leaders and business owners in the neighborhood. So as of this year, we're gonna give out over 500 turkeys. We're gonna give out 65 awards to business owners, mentors in the community all over. And it is like the staple of just doing something, you know, using your traumatic situation to just better you, you know, and it's been a tremendous turnout. So another thing, so you think you're changing, right? You think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'm giving back to my neighborhood now. I'm giving my awards out, change the whole lifestyle, become a community organizer. Then Tommy gets shots again. Tommy gets shot 2019, July 2019, 2 times in the stomach.
Oh no.
So here goes Tommy. And now this one was hard, Al, because like you said, now I'm living a whole different lifestyle. I'm not drug dealer no more, right? I'm being a community advocate. I'm, you know, speaking for my people, like feeding my people for the holidays, giving away toys for the toys for tots for the Christmas and all these good things. And I still end up getting shot. So 9 months before George Floyd, I got shot 2 times in my stomach by a family member, somebody you call a family member at the time, right? So everything was surprising. You know, you thinking these arguments are just arguments, and these, before you know it, guns are coming out, and here you are, you know, become a survivor again of a 10-year anniversary. So it was 10 years after the first time I got shot at 30 years old. So I got shot at 20 years old. The next time I got shot was at 30 years old.
Goodness.
And boy, you would think that, you know, you was doing what you were supposed to do, and you think you're living this different lifestyle. And when I tell you that was like the one that just happened was the most mentally and physically challenge in my life, you know, just like the area. Now I'm shot 2 times in my stomach. The first time was in my back, which is okay, but the stomach was like everybody on my floor. Al had a excuse my language, a shit bag. Now, everybody on my floor had a shit bag and couldn't leave until they were able to use the bathroom on their own. I don't think y'all understand. If you touch take both of your hands and you touch your stomach, you can't laugh without your stomach.
Right.
That's right.
So at one point in time in my life, I was so damaged that it hurt to laugh. You know, I would never want to be in a position in life where it hurts to laugh. then life isn't fun no more. If I can't laugh and smile and giggle and, and that's when I know it was like a real problem. Like that's when I know I was really going through something where it hurt to laugh. I wish nobody that experience where they get to a position in life where it hurts to laugh, it hurts to smile, and things like that. But the uplifting and encouragement that I got from my community was unbelievable. It's like you said, you're the person that's giving out, you're the person that's showing love, you're the person that's creating avenues for all your people. So at this point in time, I said, I can't give, like I can't give from an empty vessel. Now I was empty at that time. I had a lot of questions for the man upstairs of why this happened to me, right? But one thing about it, I keep my faith high. He said, "Hey, Tommy, I'm gonna use you as an example to give the next person hope, right?" So I just follow the steps of the master, and before you know it, like I said, I'm sitting here with y'all right now of my the founder and CEO of my own nonprofit. These things is unbelievable, Al. Unbelievable.
What a wonderful story. So how can people support you now? What are you looking for, and what do we in community do to support this work?
So you can support multiple ways. One, by just the little things, by just sharing stuff, right? By just sharing stuff on your platform, using your platform in the right way. I say that a lot, but I really mean about use your platform. Everybody has a platform. Al, I appreciate you using your platform right now, right? And that's all it's about. It don't cost nothing to use your platform to highlight stuff that needs attention. The second thing is we're looking for volunteers. Always look for volunteers in the community that want to be involved. Because it is part of the process when it takes a village to change a village, right? And at the third thing is donation. Always looking for donations. Like we've been established for 1 year, so we are looking for funds to so we don't have to keep on looking over our shoulders or where's the next fund is going to come from. We're looking for that one funder that wanna fund this company. Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops, because we know we put in the real work and it's needed. And it's knocking down so many barriers, and we can't do it with no funding, So I feel like to bag up this organization, I think we really got to invest in the 25 to 35 years olds, right? Like these are the ones we want to take your place, Al, right? And your place, Anika, and things like that, right? We got to invest in the ones, because exactly, Al, you're supposed to create a platform, and it's us to like lead the way, like take some encouragement and take some advice from my elders. But us with the creative idea and the energy that we got, right? These young folks got some energy nowadays. So putting it to work, and support it. So I think that's very, very needed. Yeah.
Let me ask Anika to jump back in to do two things. One is respond, react, and Brenda, you as well, respond, react to this powerful testimony from Brother Tommy McBrayer. But also, Anika, you to sort of contextualize. We started talking about the vote and the importance, the need, and how critical it is. And if this isn't one of the reasons to get out and vote and take control, there is no better reason, right? And then we also, you and I were involved in an important event that focused on wealth creation in our community this past Saturday. And so weave all that together for me, do some alchemy here, and sort of make it all make sense to move us in the direction that we're moving as a people at this time. Anika, go ahead.
Thank you so much. First of all, Brother Tommy, I'm so sorry about your experiences, but I'm also just thankful that you have been able to channel that into positive, and you've been able to bless so many people in our communities through your positive works and trying to save this next generation. I have to say, as a Northside resident and business owner, we are all concerned about the rise in gun violence in our communities. And, we also run youth programs. And I say it's definitely all hands on deck. We need to do whatever we can to reach back to and connect and engage with our youth. So it can't just be like shaking hands and telling our stories. Our kids need our time. They need our presence. They need us to model leadership for them, and they need to see that there are real life examples of positive Black men and women in our community. So I salute you and look forward to all the great things that you're doing. But it also, your story, we heard several stories similar to yours at the Black Men's Legacy Summit this past Saturday, which my company, Anika and Friends, produced for Build Wealth Minnesota and the 9,000 Equities Initiative. And the things that I took away from the event were stories of brothers who had been in a similar life, selling drugs or some other kind of, activity, but they also had these pivotal moments where they realized that there was something more and something greater for them. And for some of them, faith helped them arrive at that. Their families, their loved ones, and knowing that there was something greater for them. The room was powerful. I'm sure Al will agree. Some of those brothers have started, businesses, owning properties, multiple unit properties worth millions of dollars. Some of the other brothers were able to purchase a home for their families and become gainfully employed. So that's why I started out with how we need to model what's possible for our youth. And we had some of our young men in the room, and they got to hear from people like Warren McLean, the CEO of the Northside Economic Opportunity Network. They heard from Pastor Dukes, Reverend McAfee. They heard from Lewis King, who's now the national director for OIC. They heard from the only white man in the room, Joe Abraham. We talked about how to start getting into multi-unit investing. Like that's the next level of play. But all in all, the beauty and the power of seeing a room full of Black men, and as a commentator said, you got all the cliques together in one room. How'd you do that?
Yeah.
Because we had the reverends and we had the business people and we had people who just getting out of the game. Everybody was in the same room being fed, being nourished. And cherry on top was hearing from Elder Mahmoud El Kati, who gave us the historical perspective. Lewis gave us the historical. Al McFarlane, my goodness, I've always admired, I'll never forget my first time coming to the Marcus Garvey house. And on the north side of Minneapolis, and as you said, it was like the Terror House, right? And so, but the fact that a Black man owned it and that someone who is responsible for changing and shaping the narrative in our communities, it was very powerful. And it has always been inspiring to me because we need to see these examples, short of living in Africa, which I have, but our community here on the North Side needs to know that there are strong, positive Black men leaders who want to serve. Everyone who came with the intent to pour into each other. There were no egos. It was all spirit. Tim Baylor came and was in the audience. Bill English, just folks that I've grown up respecting, being around, admiring from afar, learning from their examples. Black women, we need to see that. Black brothers need to see that there are other Black men who are successful, and many still live in the hood. They want to help. They're reaching back. They want to pour into you, but we have to be ready and we have to be willing to do the work. That was one thing. Nobody mince words about that. It takes money, and it takes hard work to achieve our goals. But it was a powerful event. There's already talks about what it might look like next year. I'm probably forgetting several people, but it was humbling and honoring for me and my organization to be able to bring David McGee's vision to life. This has been something they've been talking about, and they were very intentional about bringing various types of leaders together, right? It wasn't like we said, the cliques, right? It was various leaders from various walks of life, Baptists, whatever. So we need to see that. We need to model what unity and peace look like in real time in our communities. And Saturday was a start to that with the Black Men's Legacy Summit. I'm so glad you were able to attend, Al.
Well, I was glad to be there. It was a wonderful event. Brenda, any thoughts, comments, reactions,
No, I'm
reflections?
just soaking it all in. And Tommy, blessings
Yes.
that you are here to talk to us and have such a purpose and a mission. Kudos to you
Appreciate you.
and many blessings.
Appreciate you, Brenda. Appreciate you.
And I figured the Black Men Summit was going to be powerful.
Yeah.
I'm 3,000 miles away, but I knew after I heard David McGee, he was determined. He was on the money. We're going to do this. So I hope it shows up Tuesday, because I'm really afraid of that.
There you go.
I
Hopefully,
get news from that.
hopefully soon I'll be a keynote speaker. That's the goal, man. You know, so soon they be calling Tommy. You know, one day. You know, we're gonna keep on doing what we're doing, man. But
Well, I'm sure it's going to be sooner than later. That's what I know, because I see you and I hear you right now, and I know you're ready. You know, and it's about being ready and about standing up when the call comes. Say, "Here am I. Send me, send me." And that's what I hear you saying. That's what we have to do with each other and for each other. We have to, I believe, see the Creator in each of us. And so when I address you, Tommy, I'm not just talking to Tommy. I am talking to Tommy, but I'm talking to the presence of the Creator in you.
mm-hmm.
That's my connection. And I'm hoping that you are perceiving the presence of the Creator in me. And that we then determine that we've got a mutual responsibility to create a universe, to create a cosmos, create a future that is eternal, that reflects the eternity that brought us to this moment. And it's work that is worth doing. That's why you're still alive, brother.
Yeah.
That's why you're alive.
And it reminds me, Al, of Mother Atum.
Yeah.
When
absolutely.
she said, she wakes up in the morning and she says, "Thank God I am." And so you remember that, Tommy, that you were spared twice. And so when you wake up in the morning, like she said, hand on heart, I am, thank God. Yeah, because that's a powerful lady. Oh my goodness.
Well, Brenda, that's the mic drop. We're out of time. Look, we're out of time. What a good show. Thank you.
So I was going to promote just the event coming up.
Please, go ahead. Absolutely.
Okay.
Take time.
So we got an event coming up November 19th and 20th up on the screen. It's called the November Madness. We're just trying to give kids a platform to show their skills. You know, it doesn't take a person to go to college or be in the NBA to play underneath the spotlight. So we want to create the spotlight. All the sponsors on the flyer are from local business in the community. It's a community-based event, and it's for the community. Like I said, just creating safer space for young adults. This one's 18 plus. So like I said, we still do want to focus on that 18 to 30 age, because like I said, they're looking for some direction as well. So this will be November 19th to 20th. Don't Shoot Guns, Shoot Hoops presents November Madness. Doors open at 11 o'clock. Tickets on sale. It costs $10 to come. It's going to be family friendly. So make sure you guys come out, bring the whole family out. 3-point contest, dunk contest. It's going to be some drum lines performance. It's going to be and then the special thing about it, we're giving away our first award to a survivor of gun violence this year. We're giving a first award about and we're going to uplift the person and the individual, the survivor, as a community. The girl name is Michaela. She was 14 years old in Bloomington, Minnesota, where her neighbor ended up shooting his wife, and then went on a shooting spree and tried to shoot a few other people from neighbors. She covered her little sister and covered her little sister. She got shot in the head, and her mom got shot in both her legs. So I just wanted to be just support her. You know, always learn that we got our own local heroes in our neighborhood. We need to uplift them. It's the survivors of gun violence that really need support. Everybody doesn't die from gun violence, as myself, and we struggle with stuff every day. I might be good 8 times out of 10, but there's days I still have hard days.
Sure.
Hard nights.
So, send me a copy of the flyer. We'll put it in the paper to help promote it. Okay. So you have my email to send. Yeah. Okay, send that to me and we'll get it. Need it right away.
Okay.
to get it in next week's paper. Anika, my friend, thank you. Good to see you. Brenda, thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Al.